So, this is like take 27. We're both a little bit punch drunk from vacation. Anyways, September 25th, we went to the Kissimme show to watch Uncle Rick speak about his newest book, Tyrant's Tomb. He also did a Q&A and answered some questions from those in the audience. And I didn't edit very much because I really wanted to make sure that you got the majority of the experience. We met some new friends. One of which was Deja from Literary Princess. So you can go check out her channel. She's very nice. She does book reviews. And one of the things that she mentioned while we were talking was an excellent point. Like, we paid $25, 24 and some change dollars for our tickets, but we also got a copy of the book. We got an autographed copy of Tyrant's Tomb, and we got a t-shirt. Hi, Sleepy Potato. And we each got a shirt. So that's pretty fantastic. I should warn you. Bye, Potato. I should warn you, there are potential spoilers. If you have not read all of the books, there is the potential for spoilers. At least one incredibly significant one that April was
still upset about.
But we hope you enjoy the video. Please feel free to like, comment, and subscribe. We're really grateful that you came along in this adventure with us. Love, hugs, and belly rubs. Enjoy. Again, why are you nervous? You're not the one talking.
My favorite author, and I'm going to be breathing the same air as my favorite author.
Yeah, okay.
You touched your book. You're gonna get a book that he touched. You can keep it rest of your life.
I will be breathing the same air as my favorite author.
Okay, I got you.
Half mortal, half god. It is very hard to be a demigod because there's a lot of monsters. If you can't fight back, then you're a monster lunch. You can be brave, you can be tough, but if you aren't loyal, you're just gonna be alone. And if a demigod just works by themselves, they're gonna get killed, no matter how powerful they are. Because you can't just do a quest by yourself. There are different people and there are differences. Because you're different, you have a different perspective on the world and can bring new things to the table. It means that you can use your weaknesses and turn them into your strengths. You could end up to be like a demigod who gets to kick monsters in the butt. If I found out I was a demigod, I would say a lot of swearing. Bleep, 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 bleep. I'm a demigod on a quest to survive high school. To find something that nobody has found before. To stop yelling at my brother. I'm a demigod on a quest to grow up.
Why is your face gray?
Oh, I don't know. Could it be because my belly was sliced open by a bloodthirsty Eurynomus?
You said don't get scratched or you could die. Then you went and got scratched.
I didn't plan this, Meg. I didn't plan any of this. Jason getting killed. The Emperor's launching an attack on Camp Jupiter. Us being chased by carrion eaters trying to kill us. And being thrown to Earth in this wretched mortal body. How could my father do that to me? And give me this horrid name, Lester Papadopoulos!
That is pretty bad. Almost as bad as this ID photo. Hey, your birthday's coming up.
It is? April 8th. I don't remember my birthday being in the spring.
Well, it is now. That's in like 4 days.
Why would Zeus give me... Wait. I remember. I had a dream.
Another one.
Yes, Meg. As the former god of prophecy, I do have visions in my sleep. As I was saying, Caligula and Commodus were on a luxury yacht. They were headed this way. Caligula had gathered his men and his weapons of mass destruction just in time for the blood moon. That's in like 4 days.
Looks like Zeus has some fireworks planned for your birthday party.
Must be a warning. Or if I know him, a threat!
Mean dads are the worst.
Oh, wait, I remember something else. I was in the dark chamber. It was filled with undead soldiers. It was a skeletal presence, and it had glowing purple eyes. Oh!
What's wrong?
Just thinking about it makes my wound hurt. Must have been the person who sent those wretched Llorona to attack us.
Those things were nasty, and you were useless as usual. Good thing we had some help.
Yes, thank goodness for Hazel. And now that we're back at Camp Jupiter, we have allies too. We have Frank and Raina. And they told me I should go to the bookstore and see a harpy named Ella. And a cyclops named Tyson. Oh, Meg, will you be joining me?
Nah, I'm going to the stables. I need some unicorn horn shavings.
Unicorn horn shavings? Unicorn horn shavings? For what?
They're good for healing.
Oh, Meg, that's so nice. You do care. You really just like unicorns, I know.
So, they're cute. And with just a few adjustments, they make great weapons.
You want to weaponize non-violent magical creatures?
Gotta go, and so do you. Don't do anything stupid. And that's an order.
Yes, Master. Why, Father, did you find me to such an unpleasant child? Hello, Central Florida! How's everybody doing? Make some noise! Come on! Get your phones out. I want you to get on social media, take pictures, take videos, show all your friends that you're here and they're not. That's the key. So what I want you to do is when you post on social media, hashtag the Tyrant's Tomb Tour of Doom. Okay? Alright guys, so the book's only been out for a few days. This is the 3rd day of our tour. Has anybody already read it? I know some of you are already online trying to post spoilers. Is that you? Better not be. I know there's somebody in the back who's going to be awfully mad who'll be out here in a minute if you're posting spoilers online. No, it's great that you guys are so excited. We're glad to be here. Let's get it together. Let's get the main man out here. Okay, Central Florida, here it is, the storyteller of the gods. Welcome,
bunch of demigods we got here. I see a lot of orange for Camp Half-Blood. Fantastic, a lot of purple. As you can tell, I'm in purple in honor of Camp Jupiter, which is a big part of the book. So thank you guys so much for coming out on a Wednesday night and spending some time with me. It has been already a pretty great tour, even though we are only at the very beginning. We are doing 8 cities in 8 days, going all across the country on the Tour of Doom. Let's see, there, letters in different cities. Have a nice ringtone, huh? But when I say a Tour of Doom, I don't want you to think of it as like a bad kind of doom. It's more like a sort of a friendly, sunshiny kind of doom. Because really, after all, what bad could happen in one of my books, Okay, I know. I should start by apologizing. I know, if you read The Burning Maze, the last in the Trials of Apollo, that was a big downer. That was some pretty heavy stuff. You know, the thing is, I saw it coming from a mile away.
You wrote
You
it.
have Caligula, the most evil of all evil Roman emperors, coming at you with his army. And then you got Lester, who is, as Meg said, pretty useless. And I knew something was going to go really terribly wrong. And in fact, it did. But the thing is, you know, these characters, believe it or not, it's really hard on me too, because I've been writing these characters for years, and they're like family members to me after all that time. So I cried too when I was writing that, and it was tough. But the thing is, even in a fantasy novel, my feeling is like if nothing bad ever happens to the good people, then the stakes, they're just not real. And if you know that everybody's going to come out okay in the end, then, well, I mean, great. But, you know, the thing about fantasy, like in life, I mean, the reason that we cherish the really good times is because we've been through the really rough times too, and we know all the terrible stuff that's going to happen. So, you know, it was something that the story, it just had to happen, and I'm sorry. We'll hope, however, that the Tyrant's tomb won't be quite so terrible.
Yep.
Maybe. But I do think that this picture kind of does say it all. I mean, on the one hand, you have the cover of the book where poor Lester, who used to be the god Apollo, is hanging by his fingertips from a metal girder hundreds of feet above San Francisco, while Meg, his master, is beneath him saying, "Please don't kick me in the face." And at the top, our old friend, Reina Avila Ramirez Arellano. Of New Rome is boldly leading the way, fending off a killer flock of black chickens. While, on the other hand, the author enjoys a relaxing vacation in Rome. That's me on spring break in front of the Arch of Septimus Severus at the old Roman Forum. And if that looks like the smile of a man who has just thought of new ways to torture his characters and his readers, you're right.
You've already done that.
I'm a very lucky guy. I get to travel a lot, and I get to go to a lot of cool places, and eventually everything I see goes into the books in one way or another. And it was on one of these trips that I first got the idea of writing about the god Apollo. Now the question was, how exactly would I do that? Let's see. Come on, start you. I didn't know. Thank you. Okay, that's great. The thing about Apollo, though, is even though he's got all these cool abilities and he's like the god of every other thing and it's really awesome, he's kind of a jerk.
Yep.
He's really full of himself. I mean, I guess that makes sense if you're a 4,000-year-old god, you know, and you're used to having things easy. It's like, oh, you want me to kill that monster? Done. You know, nothing's hard for him. So I didn't want to write about him like that. But on one of my research trips, I heard a version of a story I'd never heard before. And I was told that in the ancient times, Zeus twice made Apollo into a regular mortal and sent him to the earth as punishment. He was grounded, basically, because he'd done something Zeus didn't like. And I thought, wow, that's really interesting. I mean, first of all, you know, being unfairly punished, I think we can all relate to that at one time or another.
Yep.
And the other thing is, you know, don't you always feel like, I don't know, maybe you don't, but I always feel like I should be like able to speak in complete sentences, you know, and I should be good at everything I try, and I should be popular, and I should look okay, but somehow it never works out that way. You know, and I'm always tripping over my feet and saying the wrong thing and feeling like a doofus. You know, I don't know if you've ever had that experience, but when I thought about that, I said, let's send Apollo down to Earth one more time and take this guy who's really powerful and full of himself and make him into a useless dweeb. That I can relate to. Hey, these are my people. I can write about this. And so, poor Apollo. You know, in every book I try to do it a little bit differently. In the original Percy Jackson series, if you've never heard the story, that began as a bedtime story for my son when he was 8 years old. And he had ADHD and dyslexia, like Percy. And he was really having a tough year at school. So I started telling him stories at home, Greek myths. He liked those. And then I ran out and he asked me to make up one. And I said, okay, once upon a time there was a kid named Percy Jackson. And he found out that he has ADHD and dyslexia just like you do. But he discovered that that's not a bad thing. Because if you have those learning differences, there's a pretty good chance you're a demigod. And my son was like, yeah. And Percy Jackson was born. So I wrote 5 books from Percy's perspective. I loved doing that. And I know I could have just done, you know, all of the books since then from Percy's point of view, Percy 6, Percy 35, Percy 62. I know, and a lot of you guys would have been totally happy with that. But it would have gotten, I think for me, really stale. And plus, I just felt like maybe I should give Percy a little bit of a break. After all, the guy's been trying to graduate high school for the last 10 years. I had 7 different demigods, and they were all telling their individual stories. At first, I thought, oh, 7, that sounds cool. Then I started writing, and I was like, 7 is a lot.
Yep.
But hopefully I pulled it off and got all their perspectives in there. And then for Apollo's story, I thought this is another way that I can go back into Percy Jackson's world, but do it a little bit differently, because I've never written from the point of view of a god, even if it is now a dweeb god. There's a lot going on, though. Poor Lester, he's hoping things will go smoothly. Yeah, not so much. This happens in just chapter 1.
Oh, okay.
That's Apollo and Meg, and they're driving a hearse. And if you read The Burning Maze, you probably know why they're driving a hearse. And they have a flesh-eating demon ghoul on the roof of their car, trying to rip the top of it off. So they're literally going off the cliff. And then they get to Camp Jupiter, and they find even more bad news. The camp has been suffering from waves of attacks, zombies, hordes of them, showing up on the borders, and they're all getting really tired of it. And that's one of the illustrations of what's going on. There's supposedly some sort of tyrant. He's living in a tomb. They don't know like who that is. He's some sort of really powerful undead creature. And he apparently is the one who's sending all these undead people against them. So they're going to have to figure that bit out. Also, just a word about the artwork on the presentation. You're going to notice there's a lot of different styles. That's because these are pulled from different artists for different reasons. Like this was done by an illustrator for a promotional poster. And then some of the artwork is done for Riordan.com, which is Disney's site, and they have their own style. And then some of it was done by John Rocco, who does the covers for all my books ever since The Lightning Thief. And some is done by Viria, who is the artist who does You're probably going to get artistic whiplash looking at all these different versions of the characters, but we'll just roll with it. And like I always tell people, the best image of any character is the one you're going to get in your head as you're reading. No screen is ever going to be that good. So, moving along. What else is going on? Well, as you know, there are different oracles from the past, and Apollo's been trying to free them. This picture, obviously, this is not done by Viria or any of the other artists. We've got Apollo over here on the left, and there is his fortune teller, the Cumaean Sibyl. And he appears to be saying, "Oh God, she has dirt, ah!" But actually, the story behind this painting goes something like this. Way back in the old times, the Cumaean Sibyl lived in southern Italy, and she would tell the future, and she worked for the god Apollo. And they had a pretty good relationship for a while, but then Apollo, being Apollo, decided the Sibyl was really cute. And he comes up to her one day and says, "Hey, baby. I'll take you to Olive Garden for breadsticks." The Cumaean Sibyl's like, "I'm good, thanks. I've heard what happens to your love interest. They burn up or turn into trees." Apollo's like, "No, man, it's cool. Don't worry about it. Tell you what, you be my girlfriend, and I'll grant you any wish you want." And the Cumaean Sibyl's like, "Yeah, you're gonna, no way. I bet you're just telling me that. You wouldn't, like, for instance, I don't know, give me as many years of life as there are grains of sand on this beach." Apollo says, "Done. Now come on, Olive Garden's waiting." And the Cumaean Sibyl's like, whoa, that was a hypothetical question, Romeo. I wasn't actually agreeing to anything, but since I know you can't take back wishes, thanks for the extra years of life. Apollo didn't like that. He looked at her and he said, "Okay, we're going to play it that way. All right. I told you you can have as many years of life as there are grains of sand on the beach. I didn't say anything about youth or health. So you can have your years of life. You're just going to keep getting older and older and older. You have fun with that, fine." So if the Cumaean Sibyl was still around today, what do you think she'd look like?
She'd look a little...
And how do you think she'd feel if she came across Apollo again and he was in the form of a helpless mortal?
Oh, goodness.
We'll have to see how that goes. Not only that, but, oh man, the evil emperors, you know they're back, the triumvirate, there's 3 of them. You have met Commodus, you thought he was bad. You have met Caligula, you thought he was bad. Imagine both of them together.
Oh, goodness.
They have combined forces, and they are coming to wipe out Camp Jupiter. And there is Caligula at the top, and there's Commodus, otherwise known as the guy who's going to play the Joker, which I guess that's kind of the same role. But anyway, they're coming to wipe out Camp Jupiter. We got zombies, we got an enraged Sibyl, so things are not looking good for Apollo at Camp Jupiter. Fortunately, he does have some people on his side, including, of course, our friend Meg McCaffrey. The daughter of Demir, dual wielder of golden scimitars and master of chia seeds. Yes, she is ready to go to war at Lester's side. You're also going to see, as you heard in the introduction, Hazel the best. Hazel, the daughter of Pluto. Now you're going to see what's up with her in this book. It's going to get a chance for you to figure out what's going on with her. She, as you may remember, has this prophecy from the heroes of Olympus where she could summon precious metals and jewels, but if you tried to spend them, no, bad things would happen to you. Some of you have been asking me, is that curse still a thing? You will get the answer in this book. Also in this book, Frank John, who is now a praetor in New Rome. A shapeshifter. And this is Viria's artwork. And as you can see, Frank in this picture is halfway between animal and human. As soon as I posted this online, one of the commentators said, "Oh, look, Frank has the Second Amendment, the right to bear arms." That's a worse dad joke than mine. That's like a grandpa joke. Which, by the way, my son informs me that a grandpa joke is a dad joke that has expired. Also, Ella the Harpy. I love Ella. She has a bibliographic memory. As soon as she reads a book, she remembers it forever. And somewhere in the past, she managed to find a copy of the supposedly destroyed Sibylline books of prophecy. And now she's trying to put them back together so the Romans have some kind of roadmap to use for the future. She has found a bookstore where she's living in New Rome. She even has a bookstore cat. That is Aristophanes, who, as Apollo explains it, is so large he looks like he ate all the other bookstore cats. And Ella also has help in this. Best battle cry ever. Tyson is back. He is hanging out with Ella, helping her with this prophecy project. But wait, Tyson seems to be sporting some new ink. What is that about? Well, let me just say that if you've ever wanted to read a prophecy from a Cyclops' armpit, this is your chance. You're going to meet new friends as well. Lavinia Asimov is one of them. I think you'll like Lavinia. She's pretty cool. She's the daughter of Terpsichore, the muse of dance. So she's really great at tap dancing. Also, she has, as you can see, bright pink hair and loves chewing gum. She always has enough packs for everybody in the auditorium, so don't worry about it. You're covered. Her chosen weapon is the Roman giant crossbow, which is called the manuballista, which basically translates into hand cannon.
Oh, heck.
So, you'll get to see that in action as well. And of course, what trip would be complete? Ariano is back, Praetor of New Rome, ready to help. And many of you have asked me about the prophecy that was mentioned in the Heroes of Olympus, where at one point Venus, Aphrodite, told Rhena, no mortal or demigod will ever heal your heart. And that's been bugging her for years. Many of you have asked, what does that mean? This is the book where you will find out. So stay tuned. But in the meantime, as you can tell, Rhena has zero time for Apollo's shenanigans, depending on your expression. Okay, that's only a little look at the Tyrant's tomb, but there's so much else going on in the world of demigods. Can you believe it's been 10 years since the Heroes of Olympus started? Not even Percy Jackson. Not even Percy, that was earlier. 10 years. It's crazy. And so, Disney, as they often do, is putting out new covers for the Heroes of Olympus series. They found a great illustrator, Nyla Magruder, who did this look. Now, I know you grew up with a certain cover, that's like your cover. And you don't want, and I get that. I still have the original covers that I read of The Lord of the Rings and The Wizard of Earthsea from 1970 something. So I get liking the old covers, and that's totally cool. But, they like to refresh it so that new fans might come to it, oh, hey, what's that? And check it out. So if you're looking for a new set, these will be in the stores starting today. Also, coming your way, if you have anybody who's not read the books before, this is not going to be like something that's real helpful for you guys if you have read all the series. But they're doing like a sampler pack, so you can just check out the first book in every series. Like this one has all the Greek and Roman series, just the first book, plus the first Kane Chronicles, and the first Magnus Chase. So, not maybe helpful for you fans who have read everything, but I like to think of this as like the sampler pack of chips that you get when you're putting together your lunch.
Yes.
It's also coming up. This is really what I'm excited about the most, I think. You can tell, right? We started at Disney, kind of a publishing house within a publishing house. I have kind of my own little publishing company now, called Rick Riordan Presents. And the idea basically came out this way. It really was from you guys. All of you were asking me these great questions, like, Rick, you've written Greek and Roman mythology, you've written Norse, you've written Egyptian, and then your mind starts racing, and you think, well, what about Chinese mythology? What about Aztec mythology? What about all the different African mythologies or Native American mythologies? There's so many cool stories in the world, and they could all be made into really fun adventure stories with humor and page-turning action and great characters that are demigods, just like the Percy Jackson. You're right, those are great ideas, but in most cases, I just knew that I wasn't the person to do that. For one thing, I didn't grow up with, say, Aztec mythology. I love it, but I don't know it from the inside. It's not my heritage. I don't know Chinese mythology like an insider. And so I started thinking, instead of me trying to write all these books, surely there are other authors that are actually from these cultures that either have written great books or would like to write great books. What if, instead of me doing it, I just turned my spotlight on them and let them tell the stories their way? And if they're enough like mine that I think you guys will like them, and what I mean by that is, like, there's a lot of humor and action, and they're really good, just really nice, easy adventure reads, then I'll let them do their own thing. And that's what Rick Riordan Presents is. We find authors from other cultures, marginalized voices you just don't really hear that much from, and let them tell their own stories. They're not connected to Percy. I don't tell them what to write. I don't get the money for it. It's their thing. I'm just kind of like the curator and the cheerleader, and it's a really fun job. This is the logo for Rick Riordan Presents, and the very first series was this one by Rosh Chakshi, and it's called Arush Shah. It's been on the New York Times bestseller list for weeks and weeks and weeks. The first two books are out. Arush Shah is basically a Hindu demigod and does adventures, and Rosh does an amazing job, and she does Hindu mythology better than I ever could. Also, we have these character art books that you'll see on Rick Riordan, and not only that, but we have even a sponsorship deal. Let's check this out.
At the end of time is brought to you by Wisdom Cookies. Everyone knows that books are great because they have so much knowledge, but they're hard to eat, and try snacking them on the go. Wisdom Cookies pack the nutritional properties of not one, not two, but several ancient texts.
Wow!
And they're pantabalicious. So, when you're staring down the end of time and searching for the celestial weapons, there's no time to make bad decisions.
But all right. So, yes, Wisdom Cookies, go out and get a box tonight. So, the next series that came up in the Rick Riordan Presents was J.C. Cervantes, who lives in New Mexico and has done a fantastic series called The Storm Runner, second one, The Firekeeper, and this is on Maya and Aztec mythology. Yeah. She knows this stuff so well. She grew up with these stories, and it's set in modern-day New Mexico. Fantastic stuff. Here's some of the character art from that. Both of the books so far have been bestsellers, and I think we have a sponsorship deal with them too.
The Storm Runner is brought to you by New Mexico, land of enchantment. Spend your next vacation in a place of breathtaking natural beauty, vivid culture, and absolutely no plague of supernatural reckoning. New Mexico's got it all. Take a walk through time, reach new plateaus, or simply take in the streets. Say, did you know that New Mexico has volcanoes? What do you imagine lives inside a volcano?
There's stuff that lives in them?
Let's talk about other stuff. Where'd you get that gorgeous turquoise? That's a death gun?
I'm feeling a little bit uncomfortable.
Aw, are you scared of demons?
Can you just get us out of here, please?
Come visit New Mexico.
New Mexico's tourist numbers are through the roof now. Another great book that came out, also a bestseller, Yoon-Ha Lee, The Dragon Pearl. Yoon does such a fantastic job. This is a combination, if you can imagine it, of Korean folklore and Star Wars. Kind of wrap your mind around that. Sci-fi, fox spirits in space. Really cool stuff. Here's some character art for that, so you can get a look at that. And oh wait, another commercial? I love commercials!
Is brought to you by Kitty. It's the life energy that flows through all of us. It's flowing through you right now. And your friend Jerry. It flows through dogs and hamsters. It flows through this rock and even this old changing transport. But it doesn't always flow perfectly. Maybe you can help by learning more about geomancy and the foundations of principle, pattern, reason, coherence. Learn this and more at the Thousand World Space Forces. If you've ever dreamed of leaving your planet for bigger and bolder adventures, the Thousand World Space Forces is for you. Join today and live tomorrow.
Sign me up, right? Yeah. Hey, and this one is in your neck of the woods. Well, sort of. This is set in a Miami middle school. It's by Carlos Hernandez. Sal and Gabby break the universe. This is so wacky and fun. Sal, one of the characters, discovers that he can reach into alternate universes and pull things out and bring them into our universe. Oh. Can you imagine how that might get you in trouble? Oh yeah. This is wacky and fun. It's a great book. I like this one so much I shared it with all the other Ricks in the alternate universes. They all loved it, although I'm not really sure Roman Rick knows how to read. And that's just a few of the books. We have so many more. This is coming out in only 2 weeks. Kwame Imbalia has written a book that is going to knock your socks off. It's called Tristan Strong Punches a Hole in the Sky. Comes out October 15th. It is based on African American and West African folklore and mythology. It is fantastic. Basically, young Tristan is spending the summer. He's a Chicago kid. He's down in Alabama spending the summer with his grandfolks, and he accidentally punches a hole in the universe. Whoops! Falls into this place called the Mid-Pass, where African American folklore and West African mythology live side by side, and things are not going well in the Mid-Pass. So he has to do this, as you might expect, epic quest through all of these amazing worlds. You are going to love this. Well, as you can tell, the cover is fantastic, and the book is even more fantastic than that. So that's right around the corner. Also coming up, in 2020, this is just the first year, and we've already gotten all these books. We already have 1 million books in print just in the US from the imprint. It's been pretty incredible. This is by Rebecca Rowenhorst, who has done a great one called Source Computer 2. Signal. Okay. It's great, trust me. Her book, Race to the Sun, is based on Navajo, or Diné mythology, and it's just fantastic. So that is coming up. We also have a lot of different sequels coming up, like Sal and Gabby Fix the Universe, the next Aru Shah, which is Aru Shah 3 so many more. Those are just the ones I can tell you about so far. Oh, and my favorite. I don't know if you guys have this in Florida, but where I grew up in South Texas, one of the creepiest, scariest folk tales was the tale of La Llorona. Do you know La Llorona? Oh man, the weeping woman. She would walk down by the riverbanks at night, and depending on what version you know, she had to drown her children. And now she's doomed to walk the earth, looking for her lost children. And if you're a mortal child and you're near the river at night, be careful, because she might think you're one of hers, and she will take you down into the river. When I went camping at night with my folks in South Texas by the river, I did not sleep at night. And I hope that when you read Paulo Santiago and the River of Tears, which is the one that's coming out about the La Llorona legend, you will be just as terrified as I was. And after all, there we go, there's how we fix the universe. And do we have a cover for Paulo Santiago, I bet, coming up? There's Arusha, hi Aru. There we go, that's Paulo Santiago. And of course, also, coming up, we are going to see Lester one more time, The Trials of Apollo, a 5-book series. And that will be called, do we have that one? I don't know, maybe. Oh, right, yeah, that too. Hey, I forgot about that one. Wow, I can't even keep track anymore. Camp Jupiter Classified is a diary of a new demigod who's just going through Camp Jupiter. So if you want like the day-to-day life that she has to go through, that's for you. And then Lester's final adventure will be called The Tower of Nero. Now, I can't tell you too much. Obviously, a lot of you just got the 4th book today, so I'm not going to spoil anything for you. I can tell you that the last book brings us back to New York City, which means we're back to Camp Half-Blood. Who will you see? You know, last night I didn't tell any, I told the audience, I'm not going to tell you any of the characters from Camp Half-Blood, you're going to see Hop. And they were like so mad. So how about I share it with you instead, huh? I'll just give you two. You are absolutely going to see Nico and Will. That brings us to my favorite part of every presentation, which is the Q&A. Now, as you came in, many of you filled out questions that you'd like me to answer on little index cards. I have not read these yet. My editor, Stephanie, otherwise known as Meg, who was up here earlier, and my publicist, Seal, otherwise known as Lester, who was up here entertaining you earlier, they have picked these for me to answer to see if they can stump me with the most confounding, the most brilliant, and original of your questions that are not why Jason. So, we'll start. This is from Brianna. Why did you name Percy Jackson after Perseus, Zeus's son? Very good question. I liked the name Perseus because Perseus is one of the only Greek heroes, in most versions anyway, that has a happy ending. And I like to hold out hope that maybe Percy eventually, someday, when he graduates high school, in another decade, might have a happy ending. And Jackson, I don't know. I just always like the last name, and I like the fact that PJ, you know, I don't know. And this is from Violet. When did you first get into Greek mythology, and who introduced you? And, you were my inspiration. Thank you, Violet. I appreciate that. That's so sweet. I've liked Greek mythology ever since I can remember. My dad used to read stories from different myths, not necessarily Greek, but like folk tales and stuff. And I think my 8th grade teacher is the one who really got me into mythology. She's also the first person who said, Rick, you can be a writer. So that was a really powerful thing. And I don't think it's any accident that I became a middle school teacher later. And I'm still writing for middle schoolers. I mean, I know you're not all middle schoolers. That's totally fine. Like I always say, if you enjoy the books, you are the right age. I don't care if you're 8 or 80, it doesn't matter. But when I'm in my head, I'm sort of thinking about my own middle school classroom. That's kind of what I envision. Because, you know, one teacher can make a huge difference. Maddie asked, which gods are the stinkiest parents? Maddie, how much time do you have? Because, I mean, we could talk about this for hours, really. Jeez, I don't know. I mean, you guys have read some of these stories. The myths are just littered with bad parents, right? It's like a how not to raise your kids volume, you know, all in mythology. I don't know. I mean, but it's easy for me to pick parents that do bad things, but I think the worst parents, I think, in mythology are the gods that don't even acknowledge their kids exist. That's painful. You know, it's one thing if you've got a godly dad who's yelling at you and throwing lightning bolts. You know, it's another thing if your godly dad has never even said hi. And you're 13 and you don't even know who he is, maybe, or mom. You know, that's pretty terrible. I don't have a particular one in mind, but wow, that's low. In your opinion, what can a journalist learn from mythology? Oh, no name on that one. Huh, that's really interesting. I've never gotten that question before. Okay, how about this? I think one thing a journalist can learn from mythology is there are always multiple versions of the same story. There is no one correct version. He's going to remember it one way, he's going to remember it another way, she's going to remember it a third way. They're all going to tell different versions. The myths are like that. Some versions, like it's Hera who throws Hephaestus off the side of the mountain. In other versions, it's Zeus. Which one is right? You know, pick the one you want. I mean, we don't know. There's no right one. There's just different ones. So keeping that in mind as a journalist, I think, would be really helpful. Just remember, there's no one right answer. So I think the more ways you look at a story, the closer you can get, at least, to a full understanding of what happened, knowing that you're never going to have like just one objective truth. Okay. Why are the stories scary sometimes? I know, they are. Well, I hope they're not too scary. I don't want you, like, staying up at night like I did with the La Llorona myth when I was young. I mean, I'm not trying to write horror fiction. But I think a little scary makes sense to me, because after all, these are pretty scary monsters we're talking about, and the gods, I mean, these are powerful beings. So I think a little fear is okay. That's you saying, you know, wow, maybe I should run away from this, and the fear is there for a good reason. So as long as they're not too scary, that's good. Also, make sure you're reading with the lights on. That helps. Jonette. When is there going to be a girl main character? Great question. Now, I absolutely agree with you. I take your meaning. Now, you're not considering, of course, a lot of the books are shared. Like the Heroes of Olympus has 7 main narrators, and I think 3 of them are girls. 4 are boys, right? Well, then, I guess if you count Nico, do you count Raina? And then the Kane Chronicles was told, like, equally from a brother and a sister. So there's that. So I love the narrators and the main characters who are these strong demigod young women. But you're right, there's never been a series where like the title character was. And I am working on that idea right now. I'm still kind of mulling it over. It's way too early for me to like tell you anything because I'm not sure myself yet, but I have heard you and you're absolutely right, and I will be doing that. When you have writer's block and deadlines, what do? Well, I like to panic, personally. Deadlines are wonderful. I mean, if it wasn't for deadlines, I wouldn't be productive. You know, I just like, hey, cool, I can just do it whenever, like tomorrow, you know? But I just try to keep in mind how much time I have left, and with something like a whole book, you just can't put it off to the last minute. I mean, it's not possible. So I try to say, okay, by a certain date, I really need to have the rough draft done. By the next date, I need to have the revisions done. And that helps me in my head to keep up with things. But I will tell you this, The Tyrant's Tomb is the 30th novel that I have published. And I still, every single book, I still think I can't do it. I've forgotten how to write a book. So what am I doing? I don't know what I'm doing. You know, why do people think I know what I'm doing? I don't know what I'm doing. So that feeling never goes away. So if you start to write something and you feel like you don't know what you're doing, join the club. Okay, just do it anyway. Okay, Natalie says, what is your favorite part of the writing and publishing process? Natalie, my favorite part is finishing. I love finishing, it's so great. That last day when I write the end, it's like, yes. You know how you feel when you turn in your last paper or your last exam for the school year? And summer? Oh, that's summer for me. It's like, yes, thank you. And then, of course, as you know, the break goes all too quickly, and then it's time to get on with the next one. But that's a different story. What is it like going on tour? This is Eric's question. Well, what is it like going on tour? It's really cool. Parts of it, I mean, if you've traveled, you know, the travel is not always like cool and glamorous. You know, sometimes you're like, you know, eating like Subway sandwiches or something, you know, that you had last night and it's the morning. And sometimes you don't sleep well because you're away from home and all that. But really, I love being on tour because it's one of the only times that I get to see you guys. And I get to see you guys in your cool t-shirts and your cosplaying and hear your questions. And we get to talk about books together. I cannot imagine a better way to spend a night than to be with you guys and talking about this stuff. So that's really fun. No name on this one, but what do you like to do when you aren't writing? Well, I play the guitar. Not well, but I do play the guitar. I like to read. That's no surprise. And I like to, let's see, we go to baseball games. We live in Boston, so we go to Fenway. And we like to travel. We travel a lot, like you saw with the picture of Rome. My kids, they're old now. They're 25 and 21. But they're still really close to Becky. Becky's my wife and me, and you know, we do family trips together, and that's a lot of fun too. And I just like walking my dog too. I mean, it's something as simple as that. I walk her in the park every morning, and that's awesome. Not a question, but I started reading in 5th grade, and now I am applying to college. Seeing Percy and friends scale in age makes me more confident as an adult and less alone. Oh, thank you. That is so awesome. Well, Percy is certainly hoping that someday I will allow him to turn 18. Maybe he can experience college too, rather than being the eternal high school senior. And wow, this is the last question. These have been great. Last question. Who is your favorite author other than myself? I have so many. I don't know that I can pick just one. And some of them I know personally, and I just know they're really nice people, and so that kind of colors the way I see things. But some I don't know, and I just love their books. I can't list every name for you, but if you go on goodreads.com, and just type in my name, it'll come up with like 500 book reviews, because I like to read books and then write reviews. So if you want to see the books I've enjoyed, you can read, you know, all of them right there. I guess if I had to choose, I would choose Suzanne Collins of The Hunger Games. And I'll tell you why. I've met Suzanne a few times, and the first time I met was before The Hunger Games. She had a series that came out before that called Gregor the Overlander. It was more of a middle grade series. It was really good. That series saved my son's life in middle school. He loved that series. He read it so many times. And so when I met Suzanne, I told her that story and how much that series meant to him and to me. And she said that she also had a son who had been reading Percy Jackson. So it was really cool. And so I got to watch from the very beginning. I got like a really early copy of The Hunger Games and got to read it before anybody else did. And I knew it was going to be huge. So later on, after she'd finished the trilogy, we met again at some event. She came up to me and said, Rick, I have to confess something to you. I was so nervous when I was on like the second book of the trilogy that something would happen, like there'd be a plane crash and I would die or something. And I get that. I worry about that too. Like, what if I can't finish the series? And she said, I told my editor that if I didn't get to finish the Hunger Games trilogy, I wanted Rick Riordan to finish it. First of all, I'm really glad she didn't die. I do not want that kind of responsibility. But second, that was a real honor. Thank you guys so much. It was wonderful spending time with you tonight.
Make sure we've got t-shirts for everybody. Tyrant's Tomb, Tour of Doom, posted on social media. Thank you guys. Thank you, Osceola High School and Books A Million in Kissimme. Good night. Be safe.
Hey guys, just to know, you will get your books on the way out, so make sure you show them your wristband. You'll get a signed copy of his book on your way out. Also, if you haven't picked up your t-shirt,